The Carolina Panthers defense last year, they sucked at everything. Let's just keep it blunt and honest. They were dead last at stopping the run. They were awful against the pass. And that put Ejiro Everill's future as DC with this team in question at the start of the offseason. However, Dave Canales opted to retain him, which I felt was a good decision. Ejiro Evero has been one of the better defensive coordinators in the NFL these last couple of years. Is he one of the best? No, but he definitely is above average. And he has shown in the past, if you give him some talent to work with on that side of the ball, he can produce some pretty good defenses. And the Panthers are a good defense away from winning the NFC South. They are loaded on offense. They have an army that they pretty much have assembled for Bryce Young entering his third season. And all you need is for your defense to at least be average, and you'll be good enough to win the NFC South and to make it to the playoffs, a place that you haven't been in a very long time. So has the Carolina Panthers defense improved? You fortified the defensive line, the pass rush. You spent a lot of money in free agency, signing a guy like Tershawn Wharton, who had 6.5 sacks with Kansas City last year. You also got Pat Jones, who is coming off a breakout season in Minnesota with 7 sacks. So the pass rush has improved. You also drafted defensive tackle Cam Jackson out of Florida, who was one of my favorite defensive tackles in this draft. He's 6'6", 328 pounds. He's violent, powerful. He's going to be really good against the run. And you drafted 2 really good edge rushers. And the second day of the draft, you get Nic Scourton out of Texas A&M, who is the player the Cincinnati Bengals should have drafted in the first round instead of Shamar Stewart. In 2 seasons, he had 15 sacks. He could be a guy that comes in and immediately hits the ground running. Maybe you get 6-7 sacks out of him right out the gate. You got Princely. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because, let's be honest, I can't pronounce it and you probably can't pronounce it neither. So I'm not going to embarrass myself like that. But he had 10.5 sacks at Ole Miss last year. So from a defensive line and pass rush standpoint, the Panthers defense has improved in that regard. And not to mention, you're going to get a healthy Derek Brown coming back. Now, in the secondary, you know the Panthers still have some holes there. But you did sign Trevon Moehrig, who is coming off a standout season with the Raiders, over 100 tackles. Pro Football Focus graded him out as the 6th best safety in the league against the run. You get Latham Ransom out of Ohio State. He's a physical box safety. He can cover tight ends, running backs out of the backfield, and he's very effective against the run. Pass coverage isn't really that much of his forte. Neither is it for Trevon Moehrig, but your defense overall has improved compared to what this defense was looking like last year. Now, you still could use another cornerback to pair alongside of J.C. Horn. Jair Alexander is reportedly looking to get out of Green Bay. He wants to get cut. So if he becomes a free agent, if the Panthers got some money to throw at him, they need to do whatever it takes to land him. If you can get another cornerback, you feel pretty good about how this defense is going to perform going into this upcoming season. And the Panthers don't need to have an elite defense to win what has been the NFL's weakest division over the last couple of years. Overall, this defense does look a lot better from a talent standpoint, but they still have a few issues that you would like to see cleaned up with how the back end of that secondary is going to fare and pass coverage. But overall, with how good this front seven is, especially with what they bring in free agency, what they have coming back fully healthy, you got to feel like this should at least be a defense that can be 18, 17, maybe a little bit better. And if you can get that, that's going to be good enough for you to win 9, 10 games. With everything you have on offense, you should have a top 10 unit on that side of the ball. And Dave Canales is an offensive-minded head coach. So therefore, that should be the best side of the football. You don't necessarily got to have a world-stopping defense to win this division, especially when we saw the Buccaneers and the Falcons getting into shootouts in those games. So Carolina defensively, I feel like they've improved a good amount. They still have a good amount of holes that, no matter who you drafted, you are not going to walk out of this past year's draft with a complete defense. But with what they have on the defensive line, right now, this defense looks like it should at least be top 20, maybe better if you can find a way to get another cornerback in there. So these are my thoughts on the Carolina Panthers defense. A lot of you guys have been asking me, JT, how do you feel about the additions Carolina has made on this side of the ball? I feel like they've done enough to give themselves a good chance of winning this division. And I would take them if they just had a little bit more talent at corner. But, I feel like this defense definitely is miles better than what it was around this time last year.